Hey, third grade mathematicians. Well, we are ready to make our own set of multiplication cards. And before we do that, I do want to review our math focus points for this lesson. So today we are going to be identifying and learning multiplication facts not yet known. So we're going to be using the fact sets that we do know and are comfortable with to help us with facts that we are still working on. And in fact, that is our second math fact point, or math focus point, using known multiplication facts to determine the product of more difficult facts. So using what we do know to help us with facts that are more complex. Our last focus point we will cover in the next video, talking about multiplying 1 and 0. So we are going to be using context to understand multiplication involving 1 and 0. So be thinking about that as you are making your multiplication cards, okay? All right, so we're going to be using the relationships that we have been talking about in our lessons this week to help us with our multiplication cards, okay? All right, so you will notice our multiplication cards, it has the fact, it has the commutative property facts, 2 times 6 and 6 times 2, okay, because through our study and our work with arrays and solving multiplication problems, we have found that although the first factor and second factor represent different parts of the problem, they still have the same product. Okay, so you'll also notice on this card it says start with. So we're going to be thinking of facts that we can start with and use to help us solve the facts on the card, okay? So with 2 times 6 and 6 times 2, 2's are multiples that we should be very comfortable with. And so we may start with just one group of 6 to help us figure out 2 groups of 6, our doubles, okay? So I may start with 1 times 6, and what is 1 times 6? You're right, it's 6. It's one group of 6, all right? So I can use that by thinking of 2 groups of 6. I can double 1 times 6. So 1 times 6 equals 6. 6 plus 6 equals 12. So on the back, so when I'm practicing this, I don't see the product. I'm going to write on the back the product 12. So 2 times 6 and 6 times 2 equals 12. Okay, so the next fact I want to show, or I want to talk about, is 4 times 6. Okay, we've seen a relationship with 2's and 4's. So my starting fact, I'm going to put 2 times 6. Think about how can we use 2 times 6 to solve 4 times 6, or 6 times 4. Well, remember when we looked at the relationships between 2 and 4, that when one factor stays the same, and the second factor or the other factor doubles, like 2 and 4, the product doubles. Okay, so we've seen that in our models. Okay, so for instance, if I have 2 times 6, and I have 2 groups of 6, my product is 12, which we found on our first card. But if I have 4 times 6, I'm doubling the amount of groups. I have 2 groups up here. I'm going to continue and have 2 more groups of 6 for 4 times 6. So I find that 4 times 6 equals 24. So I have 12 up here, and then to solve 4 times 6, I'm adding 12 more. Okay, so one factor doubled, the other factor remained the same, the product doubles. Okay? So for 4 times 6, if I start with 2 times 6 and I know that relationship, the product will be 24. 12 plus 12 is 24. Okay? All right. Now, the next fact I want to talk about is 3 times 7. Okay, so looking at multiples of 3. What multiple fact set can I think about when I'm trying to solve a fact with multiples of 3? Well, if I know my 2's and I know my double, I could start there and add one more group of whatever the other factor is, or whatever equal group we are adding. Okay, so if I have 3 times 7, I can start with 2 times 7. What is 2 times 7? Well, 2 groups of 7. 7 plus 7 is 14. So if I know that 2 times 7 is 14, 3 times 7 is going to be one more group of 7. So 14 plus 7 would be, thinking that 14, I'm visualizing the problem. 14 plus 6 going to get me to 20. Add one more, that's going to be 21. Okay, so really think about your multiplication facts, relationships to help you think about what fact should you start with. All right, so from here, 3 times 7, I want to think about 6 times 7. Why would I be able to use 3 times 7 to help me solve for 6 times 7? Well, 3's and 6 have a relationship. You double 3 to get 6. So same type thinking with 2's and 4's, 3's and 6's have a relationship. So if I know that 3 times 7 is 21, 6 times 7, I'm going to double the product of 3 times 7. So 21 plus 21 would be 20 plus 20 is 40. 1 plus 1 is 2. 40 plus 2 is 42. Okay, so that's one way you can think about solving for your multiples of 6 by thinking of 3's. Another way is to use our friends, the 5's. So if we know what 5 times 7 is, or 7 times 5, and we are skip counting by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, I know that if I know what 5 times 7, 5 groups of 7 equals, or 7 groups of 5, then I'm adding one more group of 7 to solve for 6 times 7. So you could start with 5 times 7, and you can add that one more group of 7 to get 6 times 7, and 7 times 6, which 35 plus 7 would be 35 plus 5 is 40, plus 2 more would be 42. Okay, so whatever facts that you are comfortable with, or that you want to start with to solve these more complex facts, you may put where it says start with. Okay, so as you're filling out these multiplication cards, think about your friends' 2's, 5's, and 10's. Okay, and use that relationship. Another relationship that you can be thinking about is, like, if you know that 5 times 8 is 40, let's say that's a fact that you are very comfortable with, you can use 5 times 8 to help you solve 5 times 9, because that's just one more group of 5, okay? So I may, on my start with, put 5 times 8, or 8 times 5, and then I can add that one more group of 5 to solve for 5 times 9 and 9 times 5. Okay, so then 40 plus 5 would be 45. Okay, so again, it goes back to that math focus point of using known multiplication facts to determine the product of more difficult facts, okay? Now, as you are practicing these multiplication facts, you're going to have 2 piles, facts that I know and facts that I'm working on. So if you are, while you're practicing, if you're able to get a fact and you're able to come to the product quickly, then that's a fact you know. If you're having to use these relationships and it's taking you a little bit more time to solve them, solve the fact, then you need to put it in a pile that's facts you're still working on. That way you can review those or practice the ones you're working on more often. Okay? All right. So, once you've cut out all your cards, think about the facts that you're starting with. Okay, and you may even connect it to addition, since multiplication is all about equal groups and it represents repeated addition. You may have some addition equations that you may start with as well. So, for instance, if you are solving, let's pick another one here. 6 times 8. Although I think I would use 5 times 8 to help me, because then I'm going to add one more group of 8. But it may help you to start quick, or start with your addition sentence of 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 until you have 8 sixes, because you're able to group those sixes, okay? Or you may, if you're starting with 2 times 8, for instance, is probably a better example. 2 groups of 8, you would think of 8 plus 8, okay? All right, so again, we, as mathematicians, we are always trying to find ways to solve problems quickly and more efficiently. So by filling out your multiplication cards and filling out the start with equation, that's going to help us become more proficient in our math facts and more fluent, okay? All right, guys, you are going to do great. And if you have any questions, just let me know or let your teachers know. And until then, happy multiplying.